One thing that I've really been looking into lately is investing potentially in other markets and doing my research and trying to find realtor contacts, figuring out the financing options, finding property managers, stuff like that in areas outside of my market. And for me, that has been super scary because not the research process, but the thought of actually actioning that because I have been investing in my market for so long. I know what things are going to renovate. Like I know a renovation cost because I know what I'm going to do myself, what I'm going to sub out, what I can expect those things to cost with the contractors I work with. I know what something is going to cost when it's done. I know the neighborhoods. I know that this neighborhood to this neighborhood, same house is going to have a different value when it's rehabbed and finished. And so I'm very comfortable in my market. However, I'm noticing as I build contacts and make friends with investors in other markets and other areas that my money could be potentially going further in other markets. And so I've really started to do some research, and the scariest thing for, I would think, any out-of-state investor is finding people you can trust because you're really having faith in what they tell you and the comps they give you. You can do all the research that you possibly could. But for instance, in my town, there are areas that on one side of the street, some streets are very long. Some streets really scope a long area of town. And you could be on the same street name and be in a completely different neighborhood, a completely different area, maybe a newer, more poppin' area, maybe an older area. And so to have somebody who knows those little idiosyncrasies of a market and is going to be honest with you, I am scared to not find that person. When I work in my market as a real estate broker, we will see houses pop up that look like a great deal because maybe they're renovated, they're all shiny and new, but in that neighborhood, that house is overpriced. But you coming in from, say you're coming in from Oregon or California, you might think, oh my gosh, this is what you get for this price. This is such a great deal. And I have seen so many houses hit the market, and I've had this conversation with so many agents. That house will never sell at that price in our market unless someone comes from out of town and they get an unscrupulous realtor who's not going to explain to them that that price is not appropriate. It will appraise, it will sell, it will appraise, but that's always going to be a tough resell down the road. And sometimes people are okay with that. Sometimes they're going to be a long-term buy and hold investor. But I think it's so important that you have a realtor. A lot of times, a good realtor, oh my goodness, is worth their weight in gold. So I feel like 95% of realtors they don't know the markets, especially if you're an investor. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know ARVs. They are going to inflate everything they give you. They don't know what things will rent for. They just don't know what they're doing because to be a realtor, you have to go to like 3 weeks of class and pass the test. So you're only as good as your broker that trained you or the research you've done or you wanting to better yourself. But that 5% of realtors that are good, you want to make sure you're finding one. And so that's my biggest fear of going into another market is seeing how many realtors I have in my market that are hard to work with, that don't know their stuff, that aren't responsive, that are giving unrealistic numbers to people. I know some people will just list a house with a realtor because the realtor will give them a price that is not even realistic. So I'll sometimes meet with a client to sell a house and they'll say, well, this realtor said I could sell it for that. And I give them all the comps and all the data. Well, a lot of times people, for some reason, think because the realtor gives them that number, that that's what they're going to get for it. And they list the house, they list it high, they list it with that realtor, and it's on for months and months and months and months and months, and they drop it and they drop it and they drop it and they drop it, and eventually it sells. And so some realtors are, just to try to get you as their client, going to not be straightforward and honest with you on numbers. Or maybe they want to sell a house, and so they're not going to say, oh, maybe like this won't work as a flip in this area, or as a rental in this area. People aren't looking in this area at this price point, or whatever. And so I'm really trying to find these contacts in the areas that I want to be investing in that know their stuff, but also are honest and that I can trust. And I'm just being the consumer versus being the realtor is so crazy to me, the fear. And it's almost like, it's kind of been refreshing because it reminds me as a realtor, the mindset and the struggle that a customer is going through when they're trying to find a real estate agent. it's kind of reminding me I'm in a place that I haven't been in a long time. And so I'm really trying to meet with people, talk to people on the phone, do my research. And even if you do that, I feel like we'll probably get burned a couple times. So I'm super intimidated. And something actually just happened yesterday that I want to share with you that is it's exactly an example of what I'm talking about and why I have the fears that I have of investing in another market as an out-of-state investor that doesn't know an area. I saw on one of the classified pages in the town that I'm in yesterday, this was just yesterday, somebody was posting, looked like it was a wholesale deal. I'm in Wyoming, they're out of Utah. They posted a property for a price. Well, they didn't really give a lot of details, of course, message me for the details. They don't want to give up their goat and put all the details on there. And so it was for a fixer-upper, would have been like a full reno for sure based on the pictures. And he said that the estimated ARV, so the value after it's renovated, is $267. And I'm looking at this and I'm kind of looking at the architecture and I'm thinking I kind of know about where it is. But so I say, well, I'm interested because I'm always looking for an investment property or for either a flip or for a rental. And the guy sends me the information and I'm looking at the information and he says, so he has the property, he gives me the area and he says the ARV is $267. A property down the block just sold for $267. I don't know if he doesn't know this or if because he's a wholesaler, he's not a realtor, and we are a non-disclosure state, so he does not have access to our MLS. He either doesn't know or he doesn't care and he's trying to get the sale, and I'm not saying either way, I truly don't know. He's saying the ARV on this property is $267. So there was a property maybe 4 weeks to 8 weeks ago that sold down the street for $267. However, because I'm a realtor and I have access to the MLS and I pay attention to the comps in the market, the little agent remark on the sold section of the MLS lets you know that yes, there was this really nice renovated home in an area that's usually a little bit harder to sell in for $267. However, big however, they included the house next door that they also owned in the transaction. And so when this property was first put in the MLS, this owner had two properties. They are on two separate legal descriptions, but they are right next door to each other. So they had renovated one and really fixed it up and redone the whole thing. And the one next to it was still distressed. And so it's an investment, but could also be renovated to the caliber that the one that sold for $267 was. So really you could be 5 if you sold both and you finished them in the same fashion. And so when they listed it, they said, we're also willing to sell this one, but they're not necessarily together because they're two separate properties. So when it closed, they ended up selling for $267, but they also gave you the house next door. And so this wholesaler who's telling you the ARV is $267 on this property down the block that they're trying to sell for $90 does not tell you that the $267 was one fully renovated financeable home and one other investment opportunity basically for free. So you were a buy one, get one free situation. And so that $267 comp is completely BS. However, if I didn't have access to the MLS, or I didn't have a realtor who was doing their research or trying or caring, or I had a realtor who knew and didn't tell me, I might buy that property thinking I'm going to get $267 out of it, when that property that sold for $267, one, it sat for a while. It took a long time. It's a great house, but it's small. It took a long time, and the market is declined and slower than it was then. So I think that it would sell a little bit lower by the time you had a renovation done. And also, there was a whole nother free house included. And so this is why I'm so scared to invest in another market, because somebody's going to see that. They're going to see what he says. They're going to see the sold property on Zillow. They're going to think, oh yeah, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm doing my research. This makes sense. But they're not going to see that another house was included because that's in the agent confidential remarks that are on the MLS. And so you know if you're going to go out of your market that you got to find somebody that you can trust. I don't know how you find them. I don't know what you do besides, my mentor in real estate told me some days you eat the bear and some days the bear eats you. So I know it's going to happen. But have you invested out of state? If you're an out of state investor or you've ever tried it, what are your experiences? How do you vet trying to find good, honest realtors, contractors, points of contact? And then also, do you have good experiences? Do you have bad experiences? What are your stories? And I think for me, what I'm really looking at is once I've done a couple, I'm going to know, okay, I've built a relationship with this realtor. I built a relationship with this contractor. I think I can trust them. But finding somebody in the market in the area that does not have a financial interest. So I have tried to find people in the markets I'm looking at that maybe are not going to make money I'm not going to waste anybody's time. So I will pay them like a rate to go check something out. But somebody that grew up there, if you don't have family and friends in the area, can you find a contact that is just like, they're not a realtor, they're not your lender. So if you don't buy this house, they don't care. They're not going to make or not make money. But maybe that third party person who has no reason to lie to you, but hey, can I pay you like $150 or whatever their time is worth, right? To go drive by, to maybe check this out with the realtor and tell me, like, growing up here, what's your experience with this neighborhood? Or do you think this makes sense? Or as a consumer? Because one thing I will tell you, my husband got his real estate broker's license for a while because I just thought if something happened to me, I want my brokerage to be able to operate and all my agents to be able to work. But he does not actively do real estate, and he does real estate photography for a lot of agents. And it's so funny because the thing I love about his perspective, he lives in the area and he has not a lot of real estate knowledge, doesn't care about real estate. It's not his thing. I will ask him sometimes when I'll see a realtor price a house that he took pictures of and he's been in it and seen the whole thing. What do you think they priced it at? And what do you think they should have priced it at? And it's so funny because his perspective is so in line with just the everyday human being looking at a market and how the public's going to perceive it. I don't care what your realtor thinks they want to list it at. I want to care the public, because a house is only worth what somebody's willing to buy it for. A rental is only worth what somebody is willing to rent it for. It doesn't matter what you think. It's the public perception and what they're willing to spend, pay, or buy. And so I always love getting his perspective because it's just this general common sense public perspective. It's not just like the realtor perspective. So you need to find that person in the market who, if I don't buy that house, they're not making a commission. So they're not trying to convince me or force me into it. They're really just like, hey, I'm independent and I think this does or does not make sense. Keep in mind, they might not be an expert in the market. They might not be an investor, but just that third party that doesn't actually care if you buy or sell it. They're getting paid either way. So anyway, that, as I've been going through these fears and then seeing that happen yesterday, just hit home even more how important it is to find the right people. So if you have any tips on that, or if you're an investor in the Detroit area, that's really, I think, where I'm probably looking right now, but I'm really open to markets that make sense. If you have an awesome contractor there, realtor there, anybody that is boots on the ground, I would love, or if you're there, I would love to connect with you. So see you guys on the next one. Be vigilant, keep doing your research like I am, and share your experiences with me. And I hope that as we go into this, we have good luck in finding good, honest, trustworthy people. All right, see you guys on the next one. Bye.